Hi, it's Sivaraj Aura. This is the Distro Boss Podcast. I'm on right now with Dave Connors. He's the owner of a company called Distribind, very close to the word distro. I like that. Distribind.io, is it? And it's a software as a service platform, right? It's a software as a service, which basically means it's a software that does stuff for other businesses in this case. And the businesses or the industry that you focus on is the insurance business. And I think your tagline is you aim to cure their addiction of spreadsheets. Now, this podcast is not necessarily going to be just about insurance. This is really about for the people who want to start a business and who want to build a software, because software is an amazing business category to get into, because as a product, once you've built it, even if it's cost you a ton of money to build software, you can sort of shift your focus to selling, and then it becomes a sales business, right? And you can very quickly, if you can drive up enough subscriptions, if you can get some corporate enterprise clients, you can make a ton of money. So I'm really curious to see how. I want to know about your business. I want to know about how you built that software, how you got into that world, and kind of the journey that it's taken. You've been on as an entrepreneur, someone who's kind of left the world of work essentially, and now is catering to the world of insurance. And just tell us your story in terms of how you got started.
Yeah, thank you. It's great to be here. It's funny you say leaving the world of work. I think I've probably never worked harder in my life in the last as I have in the last few years. Distribind is curing the insurance industry of its spreadsheet addiction. We focus on a niche area of insurance, which I won't bore people with too much, but effectively it is where the company that sells the insurance is not the company that will actually carry the risk of the policy and will need to pay the claims. So this is typically, where a company will approach an insurer, and it will be, we have a brand that will sell into a particular demographic, maybe knowledge of a particular class of business or market that insurer doesn't really have any presence in. We can increase your presence in there without you going through the cost of employing people, setting up that brand, doing that marketing, etc. And obviously, those whoever that then ultimately sells those policies has to still tell the insurer, hey, here's all the policies you're on risk for, here's all the premium we're going to pay, and unfortunately, here's some claims as well. That today is about over 95% of that will all be spreadsheet based. This is a very significant part of the insurance industry, hundreds of billions of dollars a year in premium. Over 10 to 15% of most general insurance markets will have this. The premium value will be sold this way. For those familiar with the Lloyd's of London specialty market, it's 40%. It's a huge part of the industry. Our platform, what we do, we eliminate spreadsheets wherever we can. So we have the ability to take data via API real time. As soon as the policy is sold, get it through the value chain. We can process other formats, PDFs, XML, and where spreadsheets can't be avoided today, if an insurer receives a spreadsheet, they'll be spending maybe 45 minutes per spreadsheet of pre-manipulation before they can load it into their systems to tell them what's actually in that spreadsheet. And we at Distribind have taken that to zero. So we offer a huge benefit in terms of automation, huge benefit in terms of visibility. They'll receive hundreds of spreadsheets every month. They will have each spreadsheet might have just a few rows in, might have thousands of rows. Excel doesn't work very well when you've got thousands of rows, hundreds of columns wide. So it can be very, very difficult for an insurer to even see the policies that they're on risk for. It can be very, very difficult if there's something crept in that, was over the limit that they agreed with their agent, a type of business that the agent shouldn't be selling. That kind of stuff can creep in. One of our clients, said, literally within a few weeks of working with us, they identified over €1.5 million of claims that they wouldn't have paid because they'd have stopped the policy at source and said, this is outside the terms of what you should be selling. But by the time the claim came in, they'd been receiving premium for years. They had to pay the claim.
All right. So this is like a really specific function within businesses. Like two things come to mind when I think of that. Like I start to think of first off, like, how do you market that kind of business? Because that's not like billboard advertising. That's not like your standard Facebook ads. Like, when people talk about marketing and direct response marketing out there right now, it's like, okay, this is a really specific niche or niche that you're targeting here, a real problem, and you've provided a solution to it that exists. You've identified it. So I've got like three things that come to mind. A, like, how did you find out about that problem? Like, were you doing this? Have you just digitized like a manual process that you were familiar with when you were working maybe for a company? And then I guess the next question is, how do you market that? Like, because clearly that's not going to be like traditional. Like, you can spend a long time building a software package for like a really specific solution like that. And then you very quickly realize, okay, now I've got to start making money. And if you didn't have a client list, you've got to start finding them. And so that's where a lot of people have to shift their thought process from the typical standard advertising methods. And I wouldn't say traditional, because when some people say traditional, they think just like print media and billboard, and the new stuff is like online marketing. But actually, you've got to go beyond that into, well, maybe you have to have salespeople contacting people directly. Maybe you have to have referral agents. Maybe you have to work through some kind of I guess like a distribution channel, essentially, like with strategic partnerships where other companies are essentially selling your product into their businesses. So I think I definitely want to hear about that. And then because it kind of reminds me of how like insurance companies and banks sell, right? You've got all the stuff that they advertise, around the football pitches and side of planes and stuff like that. But like, if you look at an insurance company as an example, like the amount of money that you think that they've spent on promoting their insurance brand, and I'm talking about life insurance here, or something like car insurance, like Geico. Actually, let's take it away from that. Let's look at a pharmaceutical that promotes its brand, like Johnson and Johnson, for instance. You think if they spend 100 million on advertising per year, they probably spent double or even quadruple that amount of money in the actual direct sales to, well, advertising directly to GPs and internal medical practices, so that the doctors themselves are actually recommending certain medications to their patients, because really that's where they actually make their money. It's those references from those professionals to their clients. So it's almost like the advertising on the billboards are the afterthought. It's like, well, we've got some money left in our budget, let's just stick some ads up. So there was a bit there to cover. So yeah, let's just I guess start with like how you digitize that kind of a problem into software.
So yeah, I mean, it started as a personal story, I guess. I've only worked in the insurance industry for about 20 years, just over 20 years now. And it's sort of 50-50 of being like on what we might term the business side, of being like an underwriting technician, a claims technician, working with this kind of stuff, and then working actually for kind of software vendors in functional design innovation roles, and just the feeling that this had not been solved, this problem hadn't gone away. There are a few companies that kind of tinker around with it, but we're not really attacking it. And I'm very much a believer in, there's some quote from Bill Gates about, if you automate an inefficient process, you're just maximizing the inefficiency. And I think Elon Musk said something similar, that optimizing a bad process is a sign of bad engineering. And what we're trying to do is we are not trying to automate this process. We are trying wherever we can to eliminate the need for the spreadsheets, because it's a very conservative industry. Yeah, we still have to deal with spreadsheets. It is not going to disappear like that. If we were purist, oh no, it's all API, JSON in, JSON out, we wouldn't survive. So we've had to go, okay, this is where we want to get to. Or to us, we start from this is where we should be and work back. I think lots of people have approached it more from this is where we are, where do we want to go to? We've kind of done that in reverse. And I think that's what's helped us, actually, because the industry it's not one size fits all. You have massive global insurance companies with 50, 60-year-old mainframes, and also somewhere else in their business, a brand new multi-million pound digital underwriting system. On the distribution, the agent side, you have another SaaS company that has built their own, what the insurance terminology for it is MGA, the agent. They're selling this stuff through a beautiful digital quote and bind, all APIs. And then you've got someone else selling similar business, and it's all personal, it's all spreadsheet, it's all PDFs. So if you come in and go, it all has to look like this now, dead in the water. You have to be able to bridge a really sophisticated distribution network with a very legacy provider, and sometimes vice versa. So that has been one of our strengths. I think that we've built that. And often obviously it's really not one-to-one relationships either. The insurer will have hundreds of agents going through all sorts of different types of technical sophistication for different territories. And an agent may not have hundreds of insurers, but they might have a few. They won't usually just have one. And again, some of those might need very specific formats. Others might be more digital. And being able to help them bridge that is where we stand out from our competition and the kind of previous generations, which are really still very spreadsheet driven. And if you think about the child shape sorter toy, where you've got the shapes and you've got to put the square through the square and the circle through the circle, they're like that. If that spreadsheet comes in and the square is a bit too big, or it's actually a rectangle, or it's, God forbid, a triangle, they can't work with it. And we've built very smart ingestion tools to go, okay, how can we make this look like the triangle? How can we make this look like the square? What can we do? How can we enrich it? How can we augment it?
I almost feel like this reminds me of, like, as you're speaking now, I'm thinking back to like accounting software for some reason. And maybe I'm off the mark, but I feel like, it's like, so it's like when I built my software, and then it broke, and then I'm trying to fix it up, right? I'm, trying to work at it right now. And I got this developer, and he's like, well, how does this solve the problem? Like, why can't people just do this using these traditional methods? Like, if let's say something really simple, for instance, I'm trying to build your ideal customer avatar, for instance, and I have a series of like drop down boxes, tell us what they like, tell us who your ideal customer is, and then once you've told us all these little things, we'll then create like almost like a resume of your personal, your ideal customer group. And then the next step is to go find out where they are, right? So that you can then sell to them. So that's the first phase. And he's like, well, why do you want to build that? Because people can do that anyway. They can kind of build this themselves. I'm like, yeah, it's just like my accounting software. Like, I can technically do the bookkeeping myself. Okay. I went to school for that. I can get a spreadsheet open, and yeah, sure, I can manage my expenses on that spreadsheet. But there's a point where it's not that it becomes cumbersome, because I could be really good at that and I could have all these efficiencies within the spreadsheet. But there comes a point where I would prefer to have that handhold service. I'd prefer to have a more optimized service. I want to pay for a piece of software that does all this, that looks prettier, that I know plugs into my bank account, so it removes my involvement to a certain degree, and I can also just pull in my accountants to the back end of that software. So I almost now have just had to bridge the gap, and I just have to sit back, and I kind of want that service. Sure, it could be done by me and staffed by me that are sort of under me, but I want that service. And how much does like that kind of play into it? I think that's pretty much what you're talking about, right? It's like
it's
they
very
have spreadsheets. They have spreadsheets.
It's very similar, and it's what we do is we remove the friction in place. So today, it will they will argue over the label in the column header. So some will even not like it if the row everything starts on changes. If it always normally starts on row 7 and this month it comes in on row 9, some systems will fall over. And it's madness, utter madness that when you think of this, such a big industry and such important things, if your house floods or something like that, you want service quickly. You need that. Most people don't even think about their insurance except at renewal time, when they grumble that the premium's gone up, and then God forbid they have to claim and the service isn't very good. And that's if the insurer isn't sure that you're even on risk, or that you've not even paid your premium because of the spreadsheet problem, that's going to mean if you try to claim, there's going to be bad service. And we've seen that kind of thing before. And that, that is what Distribind exists to remove, to really kind of remove that friction. And touching on the kind of other point that you made around the kind of the go-to market and the sales, we're probably be atypical, I guess, to a lot of your guests, in the sense, we're not going to have a TV ad. We're not going to have a Super Bowl ad. It is all really a lot personal connections, certainly in the early days of network, of myself and other senior team members. A lot of focus on inbound marketing. So our link, we're very active on LinkedIn. We position ourselves as thought leaders. There's a lot of expertise in the company. We try to be a little bit irreverent as well. We recognize it's a conservative industry, so you can't push it too far, but I think there's also a lot of self-awareness in the industry. It's pretty boring, pretty unsexy, and so you can have a bit of a laugh with that as well. And that that helps. It helps stand out, and it helps us get a lot of visibility. We like to do things, we'll attend conferences. We try to speak at conferences, have stands at conferences, and then a few other sort of fun things that we'd like to do to just get some attention. Earlier this summer, we got an ice cream van, parked it up outside the Lloyd's building, handed out few hundred ice creams over the course of an hour and a half, and the visibility that gave us. I think we got like a massive jump in our LinkedIn followership, got some opportunities out of that. Somebody came up to me who I was already connected to on LinkedIn, actually, but we hadn't spoken in person, and he came over to me as I was stood by the line and had a chat. We're now in touch. We've done a demo, and that sort of stuff's moving forward. So we're probably atypical, even although we are SaaS and B2B SaaS. It is much more of a, I guess, traditional personal sales model, for good and for bad.
I mean, I hear that. I'm thinking I can't help but go back to like the pharmaceutical example, which is like, where they spend their money on like outreach. It's like, people don't see it, they just see what they see on TV and like just internet ads. But it's like a lot of the money that they spend is on people going out and offering free demos, kind of like how network marketing works. How they said they have the parties and you can come there and they'll show you the perfume that you can sell. I don't know if you've ever seen those types of things, like the Avon or the the Herbalife type of thing. It's like they almost follow a similar course, where it's like they go to like medical practices and the general practitioners, and they reach out to people directly, and they'll say, hey, let me show you something. Let me just show you how this new medication works. Let me give you a report on it. Let me show you a journal. Let me share this stuff with you. And they're constantly doing this, and there's not a direct sale there. All they're doing is they're trying to educate and inform, so that and also let that doctor know how they could distribute this medication, where they could sort of source it. And this is very big in America. It's not as big. I mean, it is big in the UK, but it's just a different channel because it has to go through the NHS. But like over there, where it's a bit more capitalized, and commercialized, it's like they literally just go and like educate, inform, in the hope that doctor will now will have that information so ready at the top of their mind. So top of brain kind of information, that they go ahead and actually start saying, well, you know what, let me prescribe this, and this is how you go and get it from what pharmaceuticals. So it's getting into the pharmacies, and it's getting into the doctor's offices. So if you were to take like a similar approach, it's like would you try and get into businesses like that? Can you do that, or is that like?
We do that. So there's a lot of consultancies as well, and there's obviously big ones like the Deloitte's, PwC's that we speak to as well. But they're not, there's smaller boutique consultancies, sometimes even one or two man bands that have been in the industry for a while, then gone out doing their own thing. But again, it's important that we know them, they know us, they know what our product can do. So if they're then talking to someone or have an engagement that is this, they go, oh, have you guys spoken to Dave? We've seen that's brought us good benefit. The other thing that we have, and been lucky with as well, is because One of my colleagues said something to me a couple of times, and that really resonated with me. And she joined us early last year, and she had spent some time in the US, worked in Silicon Valley, and she said, like, there's a lot of startups out there that are inventing a problem, and it was obvious, like, early to her that we had a real problem. We were solving a real problem. We hadn't invented anything, and what that gives us is that actually because we solve a real problem, we actually make a genuine difference to our clients, and that turns our clients into some of our biggest advocates. We have clients, they will give references for us to new prospects. We've seen nearly all of our existing engagements have then grown to get bigger, where we've been taken in by a company just to do maybe one type of business or just business in one of their sort of entities, and then they've pushed us into other things. And that's because we are solving a real problem. We have a real impact, and that sort of network effect, and the consultants can see that as well. When we show it to the consultants, they know that this does what it says on the tin. This will make a difference. They're not then going to look like bad if they've recommended us to someone. It's not going to fall flat, and that really, really helps.
That's great because it elevates you. Like if you've got someone else like recommending you, I think influence in that regard is like one of the most powerful things, like for any business, like especially if like no one's heard of you, if they've got a position of authority and then they're now recommending, it kind of brings your company up. I mean, I guess that takes me back to like we're kind of deviating and just focus just on the marketing side, but I do want to just go back now a little bit and talk to you about like, okay, how did you get started in this? Okay, so you figured out this problem, you've seen it day in, day out. Clearly, you're very, very familiar with it, with how much of a problem it is and how to go about fixing the things that go into it. So let's go back to like your story. Like, how did you first see this thing, and how did you and then how did you start the business? Like, where would your first clients come from? Like, did you just go out and start doing this? Did you start marketing with like little ads, like, hey, with a question mark, like, hey, you still using spreadsheets for this? Like, how did you do it?
So I mean, in terms of I had really close familiarity with this problem. I'll tell you two stories that particularly really made me go, this has to be fixed. And they both occurred at this whilst I was working at the same company. But these agreements between the insurance company and the agent. The agent will get some commission, but then at the end of the program, they will like look and say, well, okay, there was this much premium, this much claims. If we look back over the last few years, have we made a profit? Have we made a loss? And if they've made a profit, they'll give them an extra commission, a profit commission. And we were approached by an agent who said, look, I think we're due a profit commission here. Look, like we feel we're due it. We'd kind of inherited this account from an insurance broker that had gone out of business. So we didn't really know. We had to go look through. It took us months, spreadsheet after spreadsheet. What had the insurer accepted? What hadn't they accepted? Was this premium actually paid? Was this claim? What happened to this claim? All this stuff. And it came out to it. Yeah, at one point we were looking at like about 1.4 million euros of a profit commission due. And I was delighted. My company was going to be getting a percentage of that, and I was going to be getting a percentage of that. So I was like, happy days. And then there was just this 1 million euro return premium somewhere. And it was like,
so they would have just missed it. Maybe
yeah, they
their system in place is so backwards that they just wouldn't accord it for a long time, if anything.
Exactly. And so it finally turned out that actually, yeah, they were due 1.4 million euros, but 1 million had already been paid. And they had no idea. The underwriter had no idea. So, I mean, it was madness. And it was ridiculous. There was another one where I came in to the office after lunch. My boss calls me over and says, hey, we've had a complaint made against us because we're not handling this claim. And I was like, what's the claim? And he tells me the name. I've never heard of that. And I go through all my files, all my emails. I was like, I have never seen this. And again, it turns out that like the claim handler had split their team into one that handled all the little things and one that handled the big ones. When this other broker had gone bust and it had all come to us, the team dealing with the little stuff had updated their contacts. The team dealing with the big stuff hadn't. So here's again is like a €2 million claim for some poor guy who died in a nightclub fire or something like that, I think. And obviously, yeah, no one's ignoring it. So of course his family complained. But just because the whole kind of reporting system was just completely broken. And there was stuff like that just made me go, I have to do something about this. This cannot, like, this will not be sustainable. And I was left in the position where I could live with myself if I tried and failed. I couldn't live with myself if I didn't try, and someone else made a fortune. I thought I had to do it. I was helped in my background in terms of starting this because I had that sort of 50-50 split of working deep in the insurance and a bit more on the technology side. And the technology side was, system design. I'd been a business analyst, been a functional architect, been a head of innovation. So I was able to kind of go, okay, this is how this needs to work. I have very, very limited coding experience. I couldn't actually write it myself. So it was then like, how do you get it done? I had no money. I literally saw a tweet from someone that someone else had retweeted saying, like, from like a venture builder, basically saying, we're looking for things in the insurance space. If you have an idea, approach me. So I emailed these guys. We got speaking.
They were a developer, or were they
so they're kind of like a venture builder, so they can provide, like, development services and some other support. They helped us initially with a bit of marketing as well. But the big thing that they did was let me understand that there were innovation grants out there from the government. I had no idea. And they helped us with that. We put this application in because we have one bit of the system that uses machine learning to kind of predict the ultimate position of this contract. All of these contracts are between the insurance company and the agent, or most of them have a limit of how much actual premium the agent can sell. Okay. And it's for the underwriter to keep control of that because it's effectively a proxy for their exposure. So if you sell too many policies, write too much premium, they're overexposed. They won't necessarily have reserves. It can affect their solvency. So it's very important that they keep an eye on that. But equally,
just to explain what that is, that's like when you say reserve and solvency, that's like if I have a pot of money, I need to make sure that whenever these contracts are being executed and completed, like I need to make sure that there's enough money in the pot to be able to pay out on the claims. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly that. So they have to have a reserve based on their expected claims. They will also have to have like certain additional reserves based on the total premium that they've sold and all that kind of stuff.
And legally, they have to have a certain limit too, right? They can't just like get by the skin of their teeth. Don't like insurance companies have to have a certain float. Like,
it's massively regulated, hugely regulated. But equally, if I've told you could go and sell policies up to 10 million of premium, but you're only going to sell 2, that's no good to me either, because maybe I could have given that 8 million to someone else who could use it. So we have a module in the system that will kind of monitor all of those contracts and make predictions as to where they end up. And
so really, when someone calls in to make a claim and they go, and you can hear them tapping, oh, let me just check the system. They're like, really, they're tapping into like basic spreadsheets unless they're working with you. Like it's like,
I mean, often it can be very. I mean, usually they'll have a specific claim system, but then that claim system to come down into the actual insurer, it will get dumped into a spreadsheet. It's really crazy. And so,
with the amount of money that they work with, that they would have had this figured out a long time ago.
I mean, it is crazy. But it's so. So I think it's so embedded now that it's been very, very difficult to kind of fully change. And so, yeah, we applied for a grant off the back of this like machine learning module saying we want to develop this. These are all the benefits of it. We were awarded the grant. off the back of that, we got some additional investment from sort of friends.
Grants like just like a super low interest type of thing. Is that what it is?
Pure grant. So no interest, no equity. So
Wow.
you have to spend the money and then claim back. So I think it was very generous. I think it was 70% of costs that we could get back, up to a certain amount. I think so. I think the overall grant was worth about £130,000. So not a huge amount of money, but very significant to us.
Well, that can
And
help you build the software. That's enough money to, it's not enough
well,
money to staff it when you start looking at monthly salaries and stuff, but you can build a software with that.
yeah, so and that's what we did. So off the back of that grant, that kind of gave us the credibility to get a bit of a friends and family investment of another 160,000. So that's really where we started from. That we that got us enough to build a basic MVP for risk and premium. It wasn't really doing any claims, but it got us to
Your
prove that,
minimal viable product, yeah.
yeah. Well, so
But
we can.
so sometimes I wanted to reiterate things just because some of the guys listening, some of the people
Sure.
listening to this might be like, "What's MVP?" You might want to say what this venture capital, not capital, but you said venture accelerator or something like that.
The grant that we got was from Innovate UK.
Okay.
They're worth looking at for anyone. I think if you are going to do something funky. Now they sometimes they run broad brush things that they call smart grants. They're quite difficult to get because you could be competing against literally anything. And then they run more niche ones for certain sectors, certain industries. So we were fortunate that at the time they were specifically running a competition for uses of AI in insurance, legal, and accounting. So it fit us perfectly, in terms of the timing and stuff.
That's
So
where
we
your machine learning came into play. That your AI there, right?
Exactly. So we used that. We got that grant. Yeah, that enabled us to build like enough to show that we can take the policy information, do the processing we need, do the validations we need, say yes, this is the right kind of business, all that kind of stuff. And the same with the premium, and go yes, everything they've told you they've sold, they've now promising to pay you, or here's the things they haven't promised to pay you yet, or here's the things they're trying to pay you but they never told you they sold. All of that kind of stuff that we do. Reconciliation.
When you went in and you got that grant, or you were applying for that grant, you know, I almost, is that like in and of itself, isn't that like a validation tool too? It's like if they think it's worth it, because they're not just going to throw money at you, right? They're going to look at your business, they're going to find out if you truly have identified a problem and that you now have a viable solution that they could put money behind, because they have to make sensible choice. If they've got a pot of money themselves and they still have to answer to somebody, right? They have to make sensible choices as to where they allocate that money. And so that's got to be good for you.
It's assessed by say for our one in particular, they will have insurance people to read our application and say, and yeah, it's done. Is this actually a decent idea? Will it help? Will it potentially improve, and help Britain's, because it's a government grant, so will it help Britain's position as a leader in this industry? And could these guys actually do it? So you have to give the profiles of everyone who's going to be involved. Do these people actually, do they have the credibility and the knowledge to achieve what they're saying? So it was definitely a massive stamp of validation, so I'm fortunate in the position that one of my older brothers works in the insurance industry, and he's made a good bit of money, and it was off the back of that grant that he said, well, I'll give you some money, I'll invest in this, because like that's not just me helping my brother, this is a real thing, and other people have said, yeah, you could do this. So he put some money in, we got some other money at that point as well, and that's what took us to the kind of, like having the MVP, minimum viable product, got us.
Had you quit your day job at this point? Like,
So I did, though I was still I was consulting. So I was employed as a head of product innovation for an insurance software company. They worked in a different niche of insurance, So there wasn't really a conflict in that sense, but I still felt it was too much of a conflict. I couldn't be going and doing this. But I actually stayed consulting for them for a while. So I quit like my salaried position, stayed consulting for them for a little while, did a little bit of other consulting. And then yeah, so after a few months, no, and then it was like, well, okay, I could pay myself a tiny amount based off the grant money. Therefore, I want to just dedicate everything to this. So it was
Oh, so
tough
you
to.
with the grant money, like you could it was just a deposit in a bank account. They weren't like, here's
Well,
like phase
so
one, phase two of it, and it was just here you go, here's 100 something.
no, so it was we with our investors' money, basically, we would then have to do some stuff, and at the end of the quarter, we would go, this is everything we spent for the grant based things, like submit that to the grant body, and then they would give us 70% of that cost. So if we said, hey, we've spent 10 grand, they'd give us 7. So you had to spend it first, then get it back. That took us to a point, yeah, we did a couple of paid pilot positions. The insurance industry is very, very conservative. I'd already lost my hair, fortunately. Otherwise, I would have definitely lost it trying to sell this thing. The number of meetings we had where, yeah, this seems like a great idea. It's a big problem for us. Who else is using you? And you'd say, no, well, yeah, we're looking for our first customer. And they go, well, we can't be first. And there must have been 10, 12, 15 conversations like that of all sorts. And I was sort of expecting it because one of my old jobs was a kind of annual release product. And if you were coming out, we were releasing back then, we were releasing the 2016 version, and everyone would say, well, who's using it yet? And they go, no one. And well, we don't want to be the first one using it. And this was just the next year's release of a stable, established product. So when you come in, it's something completely new and a completely new approach. I knew it was going to be tough. Didn't expect it to be that tough. And I think, we there was a couple of times we were very close to it being like, well,
I think a lot of people get to this point, and then this is like where like 99% of companies fail, I think, because a lot of people, and I'm sure like whoever, like I can relate to this. There's a lot of people that can relate to this. Like they'll be working in a company, they can see a problem. Like I built distribution channels because I used to work in sales. I used to work in sales and marketing, and I always like, we're either just selling these guys ways to place ads out there, or we're selling these guys on finding people that are good salespeople to close deals. Like there's got to be. And then the one thing that we always like overlook are these joint venture partnerships, strategic partnerships, and like the affiliate sort of style of doing things. Like they're getting a bunch of people referring and stuff like that. But like you're in a business, and you're part of the already in place cogs that kind of move this machine. And then like you can really see how you could build a business around something. All I have to do is build this. I have to create that. If I can get the money to build this kind of a software, I can do this. And you kind of, and then you know what? As an entrepreneur, you go out like you kind of did with the grant, and you'll find the way. You'll get an investor, or you'll get a loan, or you'll figure out how to do it on a shoestring. Like I've done it. There are so many other people that can relate to that. Like we can get like MVP, the minimal viable product, ready. Like here's the thing. I've got the prototype. And then it's like, okay, how are you going to make some money? Well, crap, we have to get some clients. So it's like, how do you then convince people that your way is better? And I mean, I struggled. I remember I had to find. I actually did something really nifty. And it was kind of like I was convincing so many people of why it was good, and then, but no one was paying. So I ended up saying like, well, could you just like look at this thing and then give me a review like based on what you think it is? And that review turned out, so people, they glaze over reviews. So when I've got like 10 people say it's good, we think it's good, they think you bought it, but they haven't bought it. So that kind of helped me just get my first client and kind of win from that point onwards. But that was me really doing some out of the box thinking there, guerrilla marketing techniques. Like what did you do to get your first, the first few, I would say, the things that help you make your payments at the end of the month?
So we were, truthful answer is I don't know. I think I mean this. I think we were lucky we met the right people. So in 2020, we did we had quite a big engagement with a large broker that got us some money. They didn't take it forward, unfortunately, but that got us some money, and it also got us some more investment. Then in early 21, actually it was summer by the time it agreed. So summer 21, we were probably back at the point where there's very little money here. Any savings I'd accumulated before it was dwindling. I hadn't paid myself in months. And it was probably reaching the point where, okay, we've had a good shot, it won't work. But we had two different companies, one very small, one very big, gave us commitment to go into a pilot, both on the same day. And it was like the 17th of July, 21. And it was amazing. It was amazing. Again, it's some more money coming in, but still only pilot, so nothing to get too excited about, nothing massive, but was just enough to keep us going. They then both subsequently went into like full implementation with us. They're both live now, using the product. The bigger one, it was brutal last year. We had to go, through all this due diligence. Every time we thought this is it, they're going to sign the contract now, it was, there's just one more step. There's just one more step. We are very lucky, again, lucky. And I do mean you will never get anywhere without luck. One of our investors had become chairman last year. When we had no money, couldn't pay the staff, he put more money in. And it was, amazing because it kept everything going. Then these guys finally signed their contract, nearly £1.5 million. We've grown the team from like 6 to 18 in that time since, all from revenue. We've picked up other clients. It's really been, I don't know. I can't say that, yes, it was, we did this, do that. Here's the kind of plug and play run book. I think it's a mixture. We have a damn good product that we know is fixing a root problem. That's the bit that has kept me going in the tough times is, and I think that's the one thing I would say to people is, and it doesn't mean you have to have deep knowledge of something like I do with this or don't bother. But if you really, really don't believe that it's fixing some actual problem, it's going to be hard to keep going. Or it would have been for me personally, and to keep going in those dark moments, because that was the thing that makes you go, no, this will work. I'm not out yet, so I'm gonna get back up.
Right.
That's the thing. I think if you don't have that belief, it'd be harder. I think
that's like the mode, like if where people ask themselves about like how do they keep going when times get tough. A lot of people say like family, grit, entrepreneurialism's built on that kind of mentality. But then ultimately you have to have belief in your product. Like it needs to, because if you really truly absolutely positively believe and it does solve a problem that really not enough people are paying attention to, you can't help but keep pursuing, no matter how dark the days get. Even when you're flush out of money and you look at your bank account and it's zeroed out, it's in debt or whatever, you're like, but I know it's going to work. You happily convince anyone you're talking to into like believing in what you've got. It's like that's really what it takes, because and I think that does sort the wheat from the chaff as well. Like a lot of people, who do just want to do it, like build a Me Too company. I'm going to do that too. And then they kind of follow it through to like the first major obstacle, and then perhaps they have some resistance somewhere, and that's when a lot of them fall off because they don't. So if you really are like, this goes out to people who are watching. If you are in a company and you've really found a problem that you and your colleagues and companies out there are just battling with, and you think, why isn't there a solution for it? It's kind of like your situation, and you go ahead and build it. You got to push through, because eventually someone's going to take notice, right?
For sure. And I think, I had one moment probably in the whole time where I was close to thinking this is it. And this was another one of those things, where we've been talking to a company. It felt like it was going good. It was going good. And then it was, well, no, we just can't really be first. And I remember taking that call. I was up in my bedroom. I sort of just like I put the phone down. I like put my head in my hands. I dropped onto the bed. I had tears in my eyes. Like, this is never going to happen. And it stopped like that. I just stood back up and said, like that, it won't. And I just went downstairs and just carried on. And like, but that was the closest it came to this, like, I don't know if I can swear, but fuck this, right?
Yeah.
You know, that was the,
Good, man.
that was the closest I got to it. But you know, I think the other thing, and it's not my, you know, I'm not here to badmouth other products, but the fact is, I knew that there was a relatively low bar. Now, we're not just trying to clear a low bar, we're trying to build a damn good product. But I knew that the legacy solutions weren't great and weren't loved. And that's actually been proven as well by our second big customer that we got, was someone who just approached me on LinkedIn. I think we were again already connected, but she just approached me and said, I've just started this new job. Last time I moved, I took this other company in there, but they're not really very good. Can we meet so I can see what you guys do? No, she didn't want to take them into her new job again for the second time. And that, I knew that, you know, obviously that happened in the future of my belief, but I knew that because I'd heard those kinds of stories before. I knew other products weren't loved. And so I, you know, because they weren't really fixing the problem.
Are you regulated in terms of like, because you know, it's always like when people say insurance, pharmaceuticals, or anything that's like to do with money or medication, you start to think there's limitations on how you can like advertise and like what you can do. Like, like you said from LinkedIn, I'm just getting a little aha moment right now, like a little light bulb moment myself, and I'm thinking, hang on a sec, what if you were to do like almost like a podcast like this, like specific to like that specific sector or that problem in or maybe that problem and a few surrounding problems within insurance, like. And so we're going to just, this is like a thought leader podcast to this small group of people. Your listener base is probably under 1,000 in the UK, but like it goes out to them, and then you bring their peers in, their counterparts at different companies, and you're like, all right, let's just talk about generally this space. I mean, we have a product that deals with that, but like, how do you do this? How do you connect that problem? And you can start speaking and talking on all the different problems. Not you yourself necessarily. You just open up a panel and you just have like two people talking every now and again. Isn't that like a way to kind of isn't that the recipe to the interaction that you're just describing?
I think we could do that. It's something I have thought about. But there's actually some other insurance startup I know that is based in a different niche of insurance, but they have their own podcast actually. And I've considered it. I mean, we haven't done it yet simply because I think more from a time constraint, really, and a bit budget as well. But it's certainly something that I think, you know, we could do. I don't think we'd have any regulatory things. We're fortunate, really, in a sense, because we're not a risk holder, so we don't have to get any kind of authorization or regulation from that. Obviously, there's, as a data processor, we have to abide by GDPR. There's other kind of like security accreditations we can get, but there's not any actual kind of proper kind of regulatory thing that we need to comply with.
That's good, because that can hamper a lot of companies' ability to advertise, you know, like,
sure,
you know, yeah, like there's so many limitations out there. I remember, like, whether it's selling investments or selling medical products. I mean, I even just partnered with a company who are they provide cancer trials. They work with pharmaceuticals that provide cancer trials, and they were looking to tap into, well, basically expand their reach on people, you know, patients with cancer, and they wanted to drive as many people as they could into cancer trials that they wouldn't otherwise be aware of.
Yeah.
And so then we were talking marketing with them, and it was just like, oh, you can't say this, you can't say that. No, you can't make that kind of claim. Oh, you know, it's like suddenly it's like, well, what do you want us to do then? How do we even tell anyone about what you guys offer? You know, just let them find you. Well, then you've got to stick signposts up everywhere. Like, how are you going to go ahead and do that? Do you have the money to do that? And it's like, but at least with what like you're saying, in that world, you don't have to worry so much about that. Maybe it's just about, but then it is business to business, right? So you're dealing with a lot of people. If you were to go down that road, you'd probably be dealing with a lot of people who are in position, who are working for a company, who they might need the problem to persist to protect their job or someone else's job, because that's another thing that happens in the world of work.
Definitely a point of that. This, I mean, again, this is going back several years, but I remember one of my colleagues was doing a demo and I was in the room. And as he got to the bit that we do around the credit control, so checking, yeah, the premium that you're expecting has come in and been paid. I was looking around the room, like the prospects had quite a few people in the room, and you could see some people looking along nodding, and then you saw the accounts users with their arms folded and they getting lower and lower in their chair, and it's just like, yeah, because they think that's their job gone. I think what I've seen, and again, I think most people, not most people, but some people, they don't like that bit. They actually don't like the messing around with the spreadsheet. Often that is stopping them doing better, more interesting tasks. And I think that's how we have tried to do it. I didn't start this business to make other people redundant. The job is, what we want to do is make the jobs that are there better. And we want, actually, and one of our biggest clients chose us for the reason they want to grow their book of business. They want to sell more policies without hiring more people, not keeping what they've got and firing people. And that's what we want to enable. We want to give people better visibility, and we want to make their job more interesting. These insurers, periodically, they will go out and audit all these agents and make sure everything, the files are all right, everything's good. We were told, that's a job that people don't like doing. They'll be out of the office, away from their normal work for up to a week. We've taken that for one of our clients down to 2 hours because they already have such visibility of the data. And what that means is when they're trying to get people to go and do the audits, they don't have the friction, they don't have the resistance. People are happy to do them.
I feel like I have an exact, I almost have like a mirror situation to that, where I was doing this corporate training program, how to build distribution channels in the business, how to do it efficiently, quickly, how to build a pipeline, a big network of basically boots on the ground salespeople that will just sell your product on a pay and performance basis. And the guy who owned the company brought his sales team, his sales execs with him to the training. And I was like, I know that my plan is to teach you how to turn your salespeople into the people that go out and find distribution partners. But if you've brought them into this conversation, they're going to sit here for the next 45 minutes thinking, holy shit, he's telling my boss that his company doesn't need us anymore. Yeah. And I had to kind of pre-frame the entire thing. Okay, this is not to say your job's gone. It's that your job is going to change because you're going to be way more effective. You're going to be we're going to amplify every minute that you're in the office. We're going to show you how to make your sales effort. We're going to 10x it because we're going to have 10 other people underneath you, or 10 other companies selling and promoting and carrying your message to their customer groups, which are essentially your customer groups. So I feel like I've been there. And it's difficult because that's what happens. That's the first thing. It's like survival, right? I need to make sure that I'm fine. So I was talking, it was like talking to it was like the worst room ever. Even though I pre-framed it like that, they're still sitting there crossed arm and this doesn't work. This isn't going to work for our industry. Our industry is different from yours. And it's kind of hard to get the message across then.
Yeah, no, it is for sure. And I think, but it's always encouraging when you see the other side of that, because there's for all those people that did that, another one that stands out to me was when we did a demo, or we were working alongside this company, and their technician, whose job was to run through all these spreadsheets, we showed her, look, all that stuff you had to do has gone, and now you can see this. And she said, that it's mad, but it's a dream come true because I have to do much less and I can see much more. And I don't like doing that. I want to do this. I can't do this because I've got no.
So it works.
I can't see it, but now I can, and that's what we want. That was the goal, really.
Okay. Talking about how good it works, right? And this goes back to the entrepreneur question again about, okay, you found the problem, you've gone ahead and said, this is what I need the software to do, this is the tool. How instead of saying how did you do it, like what kind of problems did you face with developers? Like how did you go and find, did you go onto like Upwork and say, hey, we need a developer for this? Like how did you go and find developers that could actually help you build this thing?
So that was through that venture builder that we had. So it was mostly using them up until late last year. We started to onboard all like our own internal development team as full-time employees, and that was just through recruiters that we've used, and generally tried to use recruiters that had maybe put me into places in the past as well where I could. And so yeah, I mean, and now also, we've also 2P'd in two of the guys that had been working with us through the venture builder. So now everything's kind of in house now.
So I think if we were to wrap it up in that sense, it would be you're tapping into people's experience. You're going into like the meatware essentially, like how you're looking to people who've been able to do this before and say, let me just recruit that into my business. Let's take that experience in and execute.
So we were lucky again in the sense of because of my background, the actual like the design, the requirements, the business analysis type work. But that was me because I could do it, and it's my idea, so I was the best person to do it. So I mean, it's taken, the business really started in 2019. It's taken until last year when I may have had the title of CEO, but I was not CEO really. I was everything else, and it's only really since last year we've really started building the team. That I would say, my job has then become being actually CEO and not BA, tester, project manager.
Wearing all the hats, wearing
Yeah.
all the hats. Look, I know we're coming to time now. I know we wanted to keep these conversations to about an hour. We're going to have to get you back on. But as like the last question, because you 2019, you started, you built a software as a SaaS product, a SaaS, software as a service product, which is a SaaS, I should say. Now they're difficult to build. You're in the mix now. You're clearly doing well. We're gonna have conversations going down the road because I do want to follow your trajectory, because that's what people need to see. It's not just the one time when people are already at the top and they're making millions and then they just talk about this J curve. We want to talk about, I'd like to have like almost like document your journey, like come back to you and speak to you in the future. So what, okay, you were talking about your startup, you're situated and established, and then now how have you gone to like super enterprise clients? How have you built your business? How are you now and wherever you're going to be next? So we'll have that conversation. But if you were to give, I guess, one piece of advice to someone who is basically in their job right now, who's probably following the same thought process as you, I've seen these problems. I don't know where to go for this grant. I don't know how to get, I don't know how, I don't have maybe recruiters that have access to the developers I need. Like, could you give, is there anything that you could, I guess, pay forward in a sense in terms of giving some advice to that person?
I think I definitely repeat what I said earlier and steal what you said of the don't do it just because other people are doing it. And I don't believe if you look on Instagram and it's like day in the life of a CEO and it's pool parties and private jets. Well, I haven't seen it. I hope to one day, but it is going to be a brutal, hard slog. I've never worked longer hours. I've never worked harder. If you don't believe in what you're doing and if you're really not prepared to do that, don't start. Definitely make sure, if you're married or in a relationship, make sure that your partner is on board, because it is going to have a massive impact on them as well as you. And if you have co-founders or early employees, one, make sure you trust them, make sure they can deliver what they're supposed to deliver, because it will be difficult if they don't. And when you find good employees, let them just do what they can do, get out of their way.
Brilliant, man. And yeah, you're right. It's going to pressure test everything. Relationship, business relationships, everything. It's going to pressure test a lot. So make sure you go in with your eyes open. That is a brilliant takeaway. Dave, thank you so much for giving me the time, giving us the time, sharing your time, your experience, and your journey. And I hope to get you back on and sort of, talk about a different milestone, another level of your business. But till next time, then.
Cheers.
For everybody else, Like and subscribe.
Cheers. Thank you. Really appreciate it.